Alright, so for the last video of this series, it's an assignment. We are going to do what's called, often referred to as the cloning or the multiplicity assignment. So to get you started, I'm going to show you some examples of other students' work in the past. Just like the car and Ferrari assignment, this is going to be an experiment in using masks. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to identify an area that you can take, hopefully a wide shot, and I'm going to show you a variety of the ways these can be done. And you're going to take a series of photos with your phone or camera on a tripod or on a steady surface. Don't have somebody try to hold it for you. The more exact you can be, the much easier this project will end up being for you. All right. And so a good one to start with is to show you a student took, for example, this photo of himself. He then took that photo of himself, all using the timer. What else do we have? We have this photo with him hanging down from there. We have a general background. I think this was his initial photo. So we have one and then one that was corrected for lighting. Here's another photo, another photo, another photo there. And he ended up having a little bit of fun with that. What he started doing then is masking out the difference between them so that you can see him in a series of different places along the photo. Go to another example of this. Here's a couple images that the student took. So we have this image here. Then he took that photo. And you can see there's slight shifts in the camera, which makes it a little bit more challenging. He wasn't able to keep it completely still throughout. But as he begins photoshopping out the backgrounds by cloning them, you could see one after the other, they begin playing into, and I actually think I skipped over the very first photo, which was this one down here, which is that image. So this is the original background. And now he has himself throughout. And he also started to mess with some scale images. And these are a little more challenging when you start to put some variations in there. All right. So it should be a fairly simple assignment. You're putting yourself in different parts of the frame and then removing yourself or removing the images around you. So you're just showing this kind of part. And if you're not moving the camera and you're not changing the lighting, then the backgrounds, everything should be really forgiving. The more you plan this out, the easier this project becomes. So here's another example of some photos that a student took. So he has this photo here, and then he took this photo, and you can see a little nudge in the camera. That photo there, that photo there, and this one here. Now, when you start putting these together, he did this a little different than most people would. He used to think a little differently than my approach was. He took the negatives away. So he worked a little backwards from what I would usually do, and then he has this little fill-in spot. But he ended up making a pretty solid piece. The lighting is consistent. Everything looks good. There's a couple little issues here or there where things don't blend, but overall, pretty solid. Here's another one. The only problem with this student, he did a great job, but he didn't use masks, so he didn't get, kind of the full credit of this assignment is really to practice using masks and to be forgiving. But the overall composition, he took things that he liked, things that, kind of different points in time of his life and kind of represented it all together in one shot. And the original photos I can't show you because of the masks, but there's one, so you can see how they kind of just overlapped each other. And then he was here for one. And just really carefully planned out where he was going to be in each and what areas needed to be blocked, which is really well thought out. Now, some students take this a little above and beyond. Now, again, keep the camera in the same place. Try to be as consistent as you can. But dressing it up is not a bad thing. So this is one of the best ones I've ever received. This student And the idea of this, he referred to this as the foundations of him. His interest in music, cars, street art, photography, painting, his obsession with energy drinks, it was all covered in here. So he took his camera on a tripod and set himself up and took each of these photos one at a time. Then once he was done, he went that extra step of finding this canvas background, making sure that the images that he put in, so this tag here, this image back here, none of those were really in the original photo. This car was orange, not green. He did a color change to make everything consistent. He took this photo of the top of the Monster can, and then he actually changed out the name Monster to, say, Foundation, because, again, that's what he called this piece. Found this stock art kind of image of a paintbrush, and then changed the color to match the paint, and then gave it the whole thing this kind of painterly look where you can see a little of this like bevel and emboss sort of paint dab, paint texture to it, where it looks pretty convincingly, like paint. And it's a beautiful presentation for this piece. This is the above and beyond. This is to take this and really go full professional. But the way I would look at this project is taking elements that represent your life, things that you like, things that you can express about yourself, and combining them into one solid image. One reason that this student had such an easier time, or not an easier time, but he made it easier for himself, was because he found a really wide space and had a good angle of view for the camera. The wider the angle, the better off you'll be. This was a little easier for him to do because he could just make really clean lines in between, for example, just something right here and right here. He could do these clean cut lines in between, not having to work around like this student did. He had, again, a great piece, but he had to really kind of work at this a little harder than he did for his selections, but they both came out wonderful. All right, so that's your assignment, to try to take these concepts and looking at each of these samples that I'm showing you and being able to put these together. So you have everything from, and he did end up getting a little crazy with some extra things. I hid some layers on his. But you have a less kind of polished version, while a good attempt, to this is a pretty solid one, to a really, this is actually a slightly different assignment, but I might as well show you that. This student combined two different assignments. Most of you will not be able to do this because this does not use the tripod and whatnot. This was a combination of this assignment and another, but again, somebody who went a little above and beyond. But this is really what I would consider like the pinnacle of this one. So look at ideas like this, okay? So give that a shot and let's see what you come up with.